speaker, Greg Adlington. He is a principal organizer of Milwaukee Wealth Builders and one of our organizers, and he's brought a lot of good experience to our organizing team. Greg worked at the largest bank in Canada for a number of years before he took a detour and became a golf pro for 20 years. He rejoined the financial industry about 10 years ago and formed Next Generation Commercial Capital, a non-bank financial lender in 2010, I believe it was. A lot of experience here. He has, in private conversations and in his chiming in to help people who are stumbling up here like I do sometimes, he's just really been insightful, and he's bringing a lot of good stuff to the table for us today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Keith. Thanks everybody for being here. Today, we're going to spend a little time talking about money, but just a couple things before we get going. You have some information on your table. None of that information is germane to what we're going to talk about right now. We're going to talk about that when we're done. So if I catch you peering at things that you shouldn't be peering at, you might get noticed.
It's over there.
Yeah. Anyway, there is some very valuable information in there, but I do want to wait till we're done. And I would also ask that if you have questions as we're going along, write them down. I'll try and address everything when we're done. I have 8 or 9 slides that I want to go through, and I'm going to kind of, the slides basically will sort of give you the topic of what I want to discuss, and I'm going to kind of freeform this a little bit based on my experiences with my clients. I have a couple of stories that I hopefully will share with you as we go along as well. So, money makes the world go round. How do you get on the carousel? How do you get your share of the money? Well, let me start with asking you a question. There are 2 primary reasons that every small business fails. Anybody have an idea what they are?
Lack of direction, lack of money.
Lack of capital and poor management. Okay? Whoop. Now, poor management's number 1, 2's lack of capital, C number 1. Okay? If you don't have enough capital to start your business, you're going to fail. Most small businesses fail within the first 18 months. With restaurants, I'm sure sort of everybody's dream small business, it can be much more accelerated than that if you don't have enough capital. So it's something that when you sit down and look at this business that you want to develop, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to develop whatever, you need to make sure that when you do this, that you are going to have enough capital that once your business starts, the invariable hiccup can be tolerated. Now, where you get that capital is up to you. I'm going to walk through a couple of slides that give you an idea, and I'm going to give you some insight into where capital really is available to people. But again, do you have enough capital to launch? Do you have any reserves? What happens if my restaurant is not filled week 1? How do I make payroll? What are your short and long-term needs? Do I have a short-term need? I want to start a marketing campaign. I need 10 grand to get on the radio, get things going out there. What are my long-term needs? Do I need to build out for the inevitable expansion that I hope that will occur? And do you have a source for additional funding? And this is something that's really critical. I was speaking earlier with Maggie about this. It's amazing that for most people, even those in business, that the 2 biggest finance transactions they deal with are their car and their home mortgage. And I will challenge anybody in here that has read either one of those 2 contracts. So you don't know what's in there. So then you want to go to a bank and say, I need 300 grand to start my new business. Banker's going to look at you and he's going to have a whole host of questions, and if you aren't able to answer them, you're going to get a very, pat on the head and send you on your merry way. sources of funds, and these are kind of in order. Okay? This is important. Your own personal savings. Every single investor is going to look at you, and everybody knows the term, everybody's favorite term in the money business, how much skin in the game. Okay? How much of you is exposed in this business financially? Number two, maybe you can borrow from a self-directed IRA. People do it all the time. It's done in the franchise industry all the time. It's not to say that it's a wise thing or a bad thing, but if it's something that you are capable of doing and have a level of comfort with, you can. Family and friends. Okay? You're going to look to your family and friends and try and pitch them on the idea, you know, whether you want to grind them into a corner and pin them up against the wall, that's up to you. But if your family and friends believe in you, they will probably invest with you. Uncle Ernie, I think everybody sort of has an Uncle Ernie, that uncle that maybe got a lot of dough that you really don't like, but you know, maybe I have to go ask him. Okay? That's sort of up there just for a little humor. Angels. Okay? Angel investors. Angel investors are investors that want to look at projects, a lot of tech, a lot of medical. They want to see things that are discovered. They're interested in developing new products that have huge upside. An angel, they're kind of your initial, in terms of the outside of family and friends funding source, or somebody who's got a dream. I'll give you a perfect example. There's a company in Madison called Exact Sciences. Exact Sciences has been public now for a number of years. They have recently been approved for a test that they believe that they will cure colorectal cancer. No more colonoscopies. Okay? The colonoscopy industry is not very happy about that. I think there's a joke there that I won't make, but when they first started, they looked for angel money. They would be looking for people to come in, and those people would take a pretty, sizable portion of the company. All right? Angels and venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are angels without the wings. Okay? They tend to have kind of long beaks. They look like vultures. And that's not fair. Venture capitalists, though, they will tend to come in after your first round of financing. If you need some additional funding to move forward, a venture capitalist will be there. But again, venture capitalists and angels, they want to know two things. What's my upside and how fast can I get out? They are not long-term investors in your projects. You may find that one of your family and friends turns out to be a venture capitalist. They'll say, okay, Greg, I'll lend you some money. I need to know what's my upside and when can I get paid off. They do not want to be in the business of running your business. They want to provide you some impetus, get in, get out, and move on to the next project. Now, the next 3 or 4 of these are things that people generally aren't aware of. Investment banks, private equity funds, hedge funds, those are normally business page phrases that people gloss over and they don't really know. It's where people like myself come in. I'm certainly not alone in the industry. I am the best looking, but there are tremendous dollars out there that are available for investment, but you need to know where to look. And you need to know how to present to these particular groups. There are investments. Anybody heard of Blackstone? Greenlight Capital? Okay. Greenlight, 40 billion under management. Blackstone, I think, is it Blackstone? May not be them. There's one of these companies manages $17 trillion. Okay? That's the economies of most of the rest of the world. They have a lot of money under management. They're looking to deploy that money, and they have the ability to deploy it in virtually any industry. Private equity funds. A private equity fund could be Maggie, David, me, Roger. pooling our money together and say, well, we're a private equity fund and now we'll go invest. Technically, you could do that. But a private equity fund is just that. It's private money, maybe family office capital. And again, there are huge amounts, there are trillions of dollars of this available. Now, the key is finding out, who do I talk to? How do I present? Below that is probably one of the most popular new things, and actually Derek is testing this now in attempting to crowdfund. There are, I won't say millions, but I bet there are thousands of crowdfunding sites out there. What's a crowdfunding site? Basically, you put your idea out there and say, hey, invest in me. Now, each different site will have its own set of rules. There are some that are nonprofit. There are some where you have to produce some things. There's one called Indiegogo, which is basically for movies, people trying to raise money for independent movies. So you need to really know what you're in for there. And they have very specific rules on how much money you can try and attract, what you can use the money for, and what happens if you don't meet your goal. But this is something that more and more people are turning to, and you'll see a lot of young people, because they tend to be much more technically savvy than people my age, but they will look for these sites and see if there is an opportunity to grow some capital there. After that, you have things like unsecured business lines of credit. Well, that sounds great. You mean you're going to lend me some money with no collateral except my good name? Yes. And it doesn't have to be expensive, but what it does require is good credit. And like a lot of banks, people will always say, you know, when do banks want to lend you money? When you don't need it. When you need it, they don't want to lend it. If you have a very good credit profile and you have a business that is cash flowing, and I don't mean that it has to be cash flowing phenomenally. If it's cash flowing and you have the capacity to repay, an unsecured business line of credit may be the way to go. And some of those unsecured lines of credit can start at 0%. Okay? After a certain period of time, maybe you're at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, whatever the number is, you're not at 25 unless you default. But again, they're there and they can be used, but your credit profile needs to be sound. Notice what is the last one on the list. I'm going to tell you a story. Keith wants to start a business. He wants to start a business where he goes around and sells stuff. So he's got his business plan all figured out. He goes to his bank, okay? Bank A. It's a very original name. First Bank of A. First Bank of A, he's had all his business there all his life. His home mortgage is there, his car loan is there, kids' college funds are there. He goes and meets with his commercial broker and says, hey, this is what I want to do. The guy says, great, thumbs up, I love it. Let me get some stuff. So he starts putting all his stuff together. Calls him 2 weeks later, he says, great, what's going on with my project? He said, oh, it's moving right along. He said, it's in credit committee. Okay, it's in credit committee. That's got to be good, right? So I call him up 2 weeks later. So what's going on? I said, well, it's through credit committee. I don't have an answer. And this might go on for 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Finally, somebody will call Keith and say, I'm sorry, Keith, we can't do your project. Keith is heartbroken. Keith calls his best friend, Greg. He says, Greg, what do I do? And Greg says, hey, you got to come to my bank. I'm at the First Bank of B. First Bank of B, my guy's great. I have my home mortgage there. I have my car loan. I have all this stuff. And we go through the same process at the First Bank of B. Guess what happens? 7, 8 weeks later, sorry, I can't do your loan. Keith finally swallows his pride, calls his father-in-law, and says, father-in-law, where do I go? He says, oh, you got to go to First Bank of C. That's my bank. Well, you know what happens. So he's gone through this process. It may have taken 8, 10, 12 weeks. The problem is, this is like saying, I want to eat fast food. I'm going to go to McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC. You're going to get fast food at every one of those places. If you decide that you want to go somewhere where I can get something different than fast food, you can't just change the name on the franchise. It's still fast food. So you have to look beyond a traditional bank. Traditional banks are still struggling from what happened 6, 7, 8 years ago. And depending on who you want to talk to and your political persuasion, there's a great amount of arguing that can go on. The reality is the stability is more myth than reality. And there are a lot of banks that are still unable to lend money of any substance. They just can't tell you that. Could you imagine if you went to your bank and they said, and you said, I want to borrow some money, we'd love to let you borrow some money, but the Fed won't let us lend any money right now because we're in pretty shaky ground. Where's my next move? Over to the account closure department, and that bank would be out of business. So traditional banks, as much as you want to believe that every one of them is a good option, they tend to have to play by the same set of rules. And what do all these people want? They want your collateral, your children, your soul. Okay, you're going to have to be prepared to pretty much sign over everything you have, depending on what it is you're trying to do. The stronger your position, the better off you are. We all know what the golden rule is: do unto others. Okay, in the money business, there is the golden rule. The guy that has the gold makes the rules. And it's something that we have to live by. It's not bad, but you have to understand that. So from the standpoint of who has the most leverage, it is the guy with the gold. So you will need to be prepared. Now, some of this is negotiable. You may want to get rid of your children. They might be an option, okay? But you have to understand that you are going to, in all likelihood, have to, because the person lending you the money needs to know that you're vested in the success of this. I want to talk about SBA. When we talked about bank loans, one of the things that banks can do is there is a type of loan called an SBA loan, Small Business Administration. There are two kinds, 504s and 7As. We're going to talk only about the 7A loan. This is the loan that most small businesses will get. They have relatively low lending limits, $5 million maximum loan, so you're not going to get a 7A loan to start Briggs and Stratton, okay? But you can get a 7A loan to start a company that makes widgets for Briggs and Stratton. The barrier to entry here is relatively low. It's not specifically credit driven. They do have minimums. The advantage to an SBA loan is they have higher loan to value ratios, which means you don't have to bring as much money to the table. In fact, you can do this with as little as 15% down. So I have $1 million business I want to buy. I can do it with putting as little as $150,000 down. Now, where do I find these 7A loans? Like I said, most banks can do them. Not all do. And not all banks are required to do them. And those that do can lend on certain industries, and they can preclude certain industries. It's up to them. So the key is to find whatever your business is, where are the banks that like to lend to my type of business? Okay? What do they lend on? They will lend on owner-occupied businesses. To be owner-occupied, now they can do this with or without real estate, but if it has real estate, 51% of that real estate must be owner-occupied. Okay? You can lease out and rent out the rest, and you can generate income from there. But at least 51% of the business has to be owner-occupied. So a shopping mall could not get an SBA loan because you've got all these different places there. So they do have a list of, but it's easier to figure out who you can't lend to. Okay, that list is much smaller. It's a very, very broad program. How do I qualify? I'll answer your question. Just write it down and we'll answer it at the end. How do I qualify for this? Okay, first of all, you're going to need to have a business plan. If you're buying an existing business, you're going to have to have access to their financials, and we're going to address that in a few minutes. You're going to have a pro forma. What am I going to do? You're going to have to be able to sell somebody on, hey, I'm going to make this big investment in you. How am I going to know that you're going to pay it back? So the first thing you gotta do is get your house in order. Almost every lender follows the 4 C's, okay? Not quite the same as in diamonds, but character, capacity, collateral, and conditions. Character, are you a person of sound moral compass, okay? Or do you just make me feel slimy? So you're gonna have to sell somebody on your ability to pay the loan back, get them to understand your commitment to pay the loan back. They will check your credit. They will look at how you conduct the rest of your business. Capacity. Capacity simply means, are you going to be able to generate enough revenue to pay this back? How am I going to get paid back? Collateral. What am I going to get told just in case you can't? And conditions. What are the general economic conditions for the type of business you're trying to start? Know your credit. This is the first and most important part. You need to know your credit profile. Poor credit, it's your Achilles heel. It will get you denied from more loans than you know what to do with. If your credit has been dinged, if it has been harmed, you need to find somebody to help you fix it. Statistically, over 70% of all credit reports, personal credit reports, have material flaws, which means it's not your fault, but it may be driving your score down. I dealt with somebody a number of years ago who had, and the name doesn't matter, but it was, David M. Smith, and there was a David M. Smith with an E, and somehow the credit profiles got put together, and it took us over a year. This guy did nothing wrong. Nothing. It took us over a year to get his credit cleaned up. It's worse than the IRS in terms of guilty until proven innocent. So fix that first. One of the very first things you should do if you're looking at starting a business, hey, what does my credit profile look like? You can look it up online. Lots of free places. Do not go to freecreditreport.com because it's not free. There is you are entitled by law to receive your 3 bureaus once a year. You go to annualcreditreport.com. It will not give you a score, but it will tell you everything that's on your credit profile. Okay, so now we've decided we want to go to our bank and get a loan. What are we going to do? We're going to try and provide some financial information. If I have an existing business that I'm going to buy, there should be some historical statements available. In fact, if the seller will not provide those, run. Okay? The other financial reporting you will provide is called a pro forma, a forward-looking statement. Now, on the historical, are they audited? Or was this just something you put together on your QuickBooks? At the very least, you're going to want a letter from your accountant that says, these numbers have been reviewed by me, and they appear accurate to the best of my knowledge.
You conform this with GAAP?
No, not necessarily. That would be a fully audited statement would be something that conformed to GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. Are they concise? Don't give me something that's 17 pages long when a 1-page summary or 2-page summary would work. And 3, do they tell a story? I would like to see, obviously, financials that show the potential for growth, the potential for increase in profitability. Now, on my pro forma, I need at least 2 years going forward, and the first year will need to be on a month-by-month basis. I want to know where you're going to generate revenue and where your expenses are coming from. They must make sense, and they must tell a story. And I cannot tell you, this is where I have seen so many people screw up, because I get all this information before it goes to a lender. So they're fortunate that I am their filter. But I'll say, okay, I need a month by month, and they send me payroll of $1,200 a month every month. And they send me some other expense at $100 a month every month. All they've done is they've just, added everything forward. copied it forward. I want to know, when is your payroll going to fluctuate? You're going to start a tree service. Well, you'll be busy in March, April, May, September, October, November. Other months you may not be busy. Well, I would expect to see some fluctuation there. In other words, don't just copy and paste some crap. Because what'll happen is an underwriter will see that, and guess what they'll say? That's crap. Business plans is the most overrated and abused document in the world. Most business plans are simply fluff, and fluff is generally it's a red flag. Okay? If I see a business plan that's more than 25 or 30 pages long, first of all, it's probably come from a piece of software or an online site, and you've just plug and play some numbers in there, and away you go. Tell your story clearly and concisely. If you're going to have a 25-page business plan, the first page should tell me everything I need to know. And then you can expound on it as you go on. Your financials must be near the front, because those are the things that count. I, as your banker, could really care less that you are going to feed starving children, and that you're going to stop the abuse of animals, and that you're going to make the sky blue for everybody. I want to know how you're going to make money doing it. Those other things are nice, and it's not to say that all bankers and financial people are heartless. I do like dogs, I do like blue sky. But I want to know, can you pay me back? Okay? So, I looked at a business plan 7 or 8 months ago, and I'm kidding you not, it was 244 pages long.
Oh my gosh.
And you know how much money the guy wanted?
30.
$85,000. You printed 244 pages of crap for 85 grand? And it was for a small franchise. And what he did is he went to the franchise company website, and they said, we have help for you to do your business plan. And I'm sure he spent 5 minutes plugging in his local zip code averages, and he got this big, I'm not kidding, 249 pages. Okay, tell your story clearly and concisely. I should be able to sit down, we all talk about our elevator pitch. Okay, I don't need to know your business in 30 seconds. But if I sit down with you and I said, David, I need you to explain to me what are you trying to do here? I want to be able to, in 3 or 4 minutes, go, okay, we can move forward with that. Sell your vision succinctly. Know it, okay? Know it. You be passionate about it. Believe in it. Derek believes in his business. He believes that he is going to develop that, and that is something that somebody eventually will hook onto and say, you know what? I believe that you believe, and I believe you can do it. Especially when you're starting a new business, you have to have passion. I don't want to start a UPS store. No, because I like brown. It's my favorite color. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. All right, a couple of terms. EBITDA, very common term that gets thrown around. When you're reading financial statements and when you're starting a new business, somebody will say, what's your EBITDA? And you're going to say, excuse me, I don't speak Spanish. Okay? EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. In other words, it is a 6-letter acronym for the 3-letter acronym underneath, net operating income. Basically the same thing. So if you can say, what is your net operating income or your EBITDA, that will tell you how much cash flow the business is throwing off and what its capacity is to support certain amounts of debt. DSCR is something we hear a lot when you're dealing with multifamily properties. It stands for debt service coverage ratio. It will generally be reported as an integer, 1.4, 1.5, 1.6. Basically what it is, it says, okay, how much income do you generate? What is your debt? Divide the debt into the income, and it better be greater than 1.0, or you're in trouble. So for example, I have $100,000 worth of gross income, and I have $50,000 in debt. My debt service coverage ratio is what? 2, because I have 2 times the amount of income to service that debt. Okay? Phase one is something that will be done if you are buying real estate, unless it is a ground-up construction in which the phase 1 will be done as part of. In all likelihood, a lender is going to want a phase 1 environmental study done. What that is they want somebody to come in, test some soil, look at some things, make sure that they're going to do a cursory look back through history, make sure there aren't underground oil tanks, any potential environmental hazards that could jeopardize the site. PCNA stands for a property condition and needs assessment. That's more for multifamily housing. If you have an older building, somebody might say, I need a PCNA done. They'll have somebody come in and say, does he need a new roof? Does he need new HVAC? Is the parking lot in good shape? They're looking to see if you have major capital expenditures on the horizon. All of these terms you will hear depending on what type of business you're looking at developing. The key is, first 2 deal with income. What do I have available to pay debt? The middle one is, at what level can I pay the debt? Can I pay it 1.4 times, 1.5 times? The last 2 represent testing that's done based on whatever property it is that you're looking to put yourself into. Here's the last thing. This is the most critical part. Tell the truth. Tell the truth to me. Tell the truth to the lender. Because today in the money business, you have a 1-strike policy. If a lender feels that under any circumstance you have deliberately misguided, misled, underreported, you're dead. Not mafia dead, but financing dead. Okay, they will turn you away and you'll have to go somewhere else. And you may not have a lot of options. So tell the truth. Spill all the beans. Okay? We all have warts. Put them out there because somebody will say, okay, yeah, this is a problem, but I think we can deal with this. You would rather that than have somebody say, Craig, you didn't tell us about that. Oh, forgot. Well, now they have to figure out, are you lying to me? And if your deal is kind of on the fence, they might just say, well, we're going to take a pass. Okay? Every stone will be turned. That's what underwriters do. It's their job to look for reasons not to fund. So be honest. Tell the truth. I'll tell you one quick story, and sometimes people don't tell the truth because they just forget. They didn't intend to lie. I had a client deal out west, and we were literally our final conversation before we were going to do closing documents, talking to the lender, just going through again. And it's like going to, it's like being in the box on in a police drama. Okay, they ask you the same question over and over and over and see if you give them a different answer. Okay, and we were just going over some things. They said, okay, now the rent that you pay to yourself is this, yeah. And they said, well, except for. And he said, except for what? I said, well, we pay $5,000 a month for some stuff we store somewhere else. There's a little pause, and the lender didn't say anything. I said, okay. We continued the conversation, hung up. My phone, you don't really hang up anymore, you press. But my phone immediately rang and goes, what the hell is that? I don't know. Well, it turns out my client, who had 2 buildings full of their stuff, rented other space that cost them $60,000 a year that they didn't have to pay themselves as the holding company, killed the deal. 4 months worth of work.
Oh.
They didn't deliberately lie, but they just didn't spill all the beans. Okay, that's why it's critical. So, that's me. That's that. I would be glad to entertain any questions you had relative to that, and then we'll address the documents you have. Keith.
Yeah, great. Greg, the last part, the full disclosure, my traditional banker, my guy, spoke here 2 or 3 years ago, and that was the whole nature of his thing. The number one thing he wants is no surprises of any kind. Keep them informed.
Just remember we talked about the 4 C's. First one, character. Tell the truth.
Yeah. And then there were a few items that I didn't hear you mention that I think people use to finance. Credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you want to, but I know that a lot of stuff.
A lot of businesses get funded by credit cards, and that's how a lot of small businesses start. What you need to do if you're going to do that is understand what is my cost of money to do that. And there are periods of time throughout history where that cost of money can be very cheap. Everybody's got zero balances for 12 months. You just keep transferring balances, and that's that. But at some point you miss a payment and all of a sudden you have a huge bill. What I encourage people to do is if that's something you have to do, that as you generate cash flow, you have to look at what debt needs to be paid first. And even though it's unsecured debt, it affects your credit. That's the hammer. It may be unsecured. If you don't pay it, your credit score is going to drop 150 points, and now you can't even get a used car loan. So pay that off first, and then there are ways as you develop cash flow, if you develop accounts receivable that may take some time to be paid, there are ways to finance that as well. But you continually look for ways to move into less costly money.
Okay, and thank you. And another one I've heard of is factoring receivables.
Mm-hmm.
Who does that, and is that?
I do that, and factoring is, and factors will tell you that it's actually not, there's no real interest rate. What they do is they are buying your receivables at a discount. So you run on average every month $50,000 in receivables. Rather than hire another person to go chase those people, you sell your receivables to a factor. They might buy them at a 4 or 5% discount. Now it's their job to go collect the money. And what they do is they make their money hopefully on being able to collect 100% instead of the 96% or whatever they paid for the debt.
And then one other thing I was wondering about is anything for veterans. You mentioned SBA, but
actually, interestingly enough, the SBA came out not too long ago and announced that they would, under certain circumstances, consider 100% financing for veterans. Now, I have not financed a veteran at 100%. But I can tell you, there are, as I told you before, there are all kinds of different SBA companies, and there are a handful of, essentially, they're almost like credit union SBAs. They're sort of non-for-profit. And don't anybody take this the wrong way, but for some of these particular SBA lenders, they look for individuals that fit very definite categories. They would like a veteran with one leg, maybe gay, potentially a minority. I mean, again, they look for these, and the reason they do is because it's their goal is to help people in a lot of in this certain segment of society that may struggle to find financing. The SBA, certain of these SBA facilities, that's what they look for. In fact, I have one, and again, what's the most important thing that I need to know? Can you pay it back? On their application, first 3 pages are all about demographics. Are you going to hire any veterans? Are you hiring disabled people? How many, they like rural communities? Again, these are things that traditional banks don't really look for. So there are SBA lenders out there that are looking to help very specific demographic groups.
so if someone's a veteran, they had questions on that, could they call you and get
Nobody
kind of pointed in the right direction?
Nobody can call me. My phone's blowing up as we speak. Absolutely, there are, and look, everybody, and my son is a veteran, and everybody is looking to do things for veterans, and I think that's great. There's a lot of, again, there's a lot of There's a lot of snake oil out there, and there are a lot of ways for people to get taken advantage of. So yes, if somebody has a question, send them to me. If I can't help them, I will send them somewhere where they can. But there are people out there that are legitimately looking to do those things. Yes.
All right, way back when you were talking about must be 51% owner occupied.
Yes.
Define that a little bit further.
Okay, I have a 4,000 square foot building. I must occupy, as the owner of my business, I must occupy at least 2,005 feet of the building. In other words, more than half must be owner occupied, so that it doesn't appear that I'm now an investor looking to just lease out space to other people.
So if you were running a business from your home, would that
No.
not be an issue?
No.
Or
Well,
do you have to do it?
you can't get an SBA loan on your home. But you could get an SBA loan, you could get a business-only SBA loan that you ran from your home, but you couldn't collateralize your home real estate, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
When I was in banking, we used to refer people to WIBIC,
Mm-hmm.
the Women Business Owners Association. Or, I don't know if you can
And
talk-
contrary to the name, WIBIC will lend to men. They'll lend to anybody. Their limits are relatively small. They almost qualify in the micro loan category, 50 grand and less. But every state will have certain government agencies. You know, the one in the paper everybody's seen right now, WEDIC. WEDIC was developed with the intent of helping small businesses. As like a lot of government programs, it's had its struggles. WIBIC has been successful. MEDC, the Milwaukee Economic Development Commission. There are, one of the things you need to look at is where can I get capital fastest and cheapest? And sometimes it's going to, it could be WIBIC. There's another one that I've dealt with, and I'm drawing a blank right now. But there are a handful of them that will certainly, and if they can't help, they will point you in the right direction. There are good people in those agencies. Like I said, sometimes they get stuck in the bureaucracy, but they can be real good opportunities. Other questions?
I have to know what you think of Shark Tank.
Shark Tank is good TV. And if you look at Shark Tank is kind of like for business what American Idol was for singers. It's a showcase. And every once in a while somebody will come on there with a great idea. But make no mistake, those guys are sharks. And they make no bones about it. Okay, you want 100 grand, I'll give you 25 grand, I want 98% of your company. And then they have the negotiation and all that. Most of these people that are sitting up there, they have a discretionary fund to sort of fool around with. It's like, okay, maybe I'll do a good deed and all of a sudden I'll be a hero. If I lose it, who cares? It's like, your poker money. Mark Cuban has no interest in somebody developing a worm farm that'll eat landfills. He could care less. Okay? If somebody shows up with a great idea, but you have to remember, most of the people who end up on Shark Tank, they've been down that road of other financing opportunities, and now it's like, okay, here's my last chance. I gotta go on TV. It's like going on The Price is Right, hoping you're gonna win the. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
But don't you think that there's still value to the fact that they're getting their name and their product out there, even if the sharks don't?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all.
Right.
If I had something that I thought was a terrific product, and I had an opportunity to get out there on national television, you're darn right I'd be out there. Absolutely. And there have been a handful that have been huge successes.
Well, I also think that I'm sorry, I'm just blasting things out. But I also think that they do give a lot of good advice that people may not have thought about.
Yeah.
When they come in front to do their elevator pitch, if they haven't really thought out their business plan, or if they're not truly invested in that product, they'll call them on it. I think from a teaching standpoint, that's huge.
Well, you'd like to think it was from a teaching standpoint. Why do we watch car races?
For the crash.
Okay. Why did people watch Simon Cowell on American Idol? Because they want to see him destroy something. And so there's a certain amount of, but you're right. If you have the stones to be on there
Yeah.
and sift through all the crap, yes, there is some good advice. So, David.
Well, how is it specifically that you can help us with our businesses? So what is it that you do? What should we have to work with you, and what can we expect as a result?
I think that every business needs a roadmap, blueprint, whatever you want to call it. I hesitate to call it a business plan because I'm not big on the fluff. But we need some kind of roadmap. I mean, there are good metaphors out there, but what I can do is, as a small business person, you come to me and say, I'm doing okay. I got some ideas. Can you help me? Absolutely. And we can sit down and we can parse through your information and again, find out what you're passionate about. You know, Maggie brought this up earlier. You know, find out something you're passionate about, then make money at it. Don't be ashamed of making money. Profit's not a dirty word. Okay? Free is a dirty word. Profit is not a dirty word. So you want to make profit. So what I can do is I can help sit down, look at what you're doing, look at, are you targeting, is your business going in the right direction? Is there somewhere else you can go? And I am not suggesting that I am the be all and end all to that, but what I can do is I can also leverage some of my relationships and say, okay, maybe you need to talk to so-and-so and they'll help you with this particular part of your business. And then we can get you back on track. My business is to help you grow your business. I provide the financial access, capital access, but you have to be capital ready. David.
So how do you make your money on that? How do you make money?
How do I make my money? I'm a fee-based businessman.
Bless you.
My business, generally I will charge anywhere from 1% to 3% of a loan, depending on how involved it is and how difficult it is. On a standard SBA loan, generally going to make somewhere around 1% of the loan amount. So, and that's a fee that you know up front, and you don't pay me unless you fund. So, I'm as invested as you. Yes.
And can I roll that expense into my loan?
In almost every case you can, yes. So it's very possible, and again, remember with an SBA loan, you're gonna come to the table with some skin in the game. Okay, so be prepared to go home, drop your drawers, scrape some skin, make sure it gets in the game. You need to have some money in there. But all the other costs that accrue, I mean the SBA charges fees, and there's title fees, and there's appraisal fees. Vast majority of that can be funded depending on the structure of the loan for your business. It's the lowest barrier to entry for a small business. A lot of paperwork, that's what you pay me for, but it's a way for people to get in the game. Other questions? I know I've kept you much longer than you wanted. Thank you very much for your attention. Oh, let's go over this stuff on your, yeah, I totally forgot. We'll do this really quickly, okay? I know people have places to go. Okay, page 1.
Yes.
Okay, reference material business plans. 20 questions to ask yourself. This is something I put together. I stole from some people. I put some of my own on there. But these are questions you want to ask yourself. And if you know somebody that wants to start a business, say, okay, I have this sheet of paper. I want you to be able to answer all 20 of these questions. Okay? Second page, the second and third page, or no, the second page is for SBA loan application information. This just gives you an idea of what you might need to do for an SBA loan. Again, if you're thinking about something like this, call me. Okay? I am your best bet to get funded, period. You have a page on crowdfunding tips. If you're going to crowdfund, okay, there are some rules of engagement, proper protocol, you want to follow it. Okay, it's like when you email, don't email in all caps. What's that called? Shouting! No shouting, okay? And the last 2 pages are kind of like, how do you know you found the right franchise for you? And again, this is information that's been gleaned from my own experience, from different publications, from the SBA, So these are things to look through, and it's basically to give you some things to think about for when you're going to make that decision. Like I said, do you really want to have a UPS store? Somebody might. Somebody might say, you know what, I've been in logistics all my life. This stuff excites the heck out of me. I want to be Brown. Okay, cool. You'll do well. Okay, last thing. Everybody should also have a survey here. Surveys are very important. We at the Wisconsin Business Owners take these very seriously, so please take the time to fill it out and let us know what you thought of today, every way, shape, or form. There's no spot on there for cuteness, so you don't have to fill that in. Any other questions before I wrap up? My name is Greg Adlington. Next Gen Commercial Capital, 414-467-5001. Greg at nextgencc.com. Your solution to your money problems. You've been a great group. I appreciate everything, the questions and the consideration. If you have any questions afterwards, please come and see me. Again, use me as a resource. I'm here to help. I want you to succeed. We all want everybody to succeed. So thanks. Enjoy the day. Have a great weekend.